By the late 19th century, the United States had left behind a political revolution and entered an industrial one. In the 20 years that followed the Civil War, America experienced 2 presidential assassinations and 5 mediocre presidencies. From Andrew Johnson's impeachment through Chester A. Arthur's laconic administration, the power of the executive office had clearly waned. By the 1880s, the President of the United States was hardly seen as the most powerful man in the land. Instead, that title was held by the likes of J.P. Morgan, John D. Rockefeller, and Andrew Carnegie, America's potent captains of industry. It was an era of extremes, with 1/8 of the population owning 7/8 of the wealth. For many citizens, it was an era of economic and political disenfranchisement. Scandals had rocked the White House and shaken public confidence. But the hotly contested presidential election of 1884 would become one of the dirtiest campaigns in American political history, as the morality of both candidates was called into question. The Democrats nominated New York Governor Grover Cleveland. He was known as Grover the Good because he devoted his life to cleaning up corrupt government. But he also had a skeleton in his closet, which Republicans were quick to expose.
The Republicans brought up the fact that Grover Cleveland had had an illegitimate child. And they even wrote a little poem about it. "Ma, where's my pa?"
And to that, the Democrats replied,
"Gone to the White House, ha ha ha."
Stunning everyone, Cleveland came right out and confessed, taking full responsibility for the child. The public forgave him, even praising him for his honesty. Then the Democrats fought back, telling voters that the Republican opponent, James G. Blaine, had been a dishonest politician, guilty of corruption.
And their little poem was, Blaine, James G. Blaine, continental liar from the state of Maine.
In the end, it was a close race, but voters decided to keep Blaine in Maine, and Grover Cleveland was off to the White House. Number 22, Grover Cleveland, Democrat, 1885 to 1889, 47 years old, from New York. Cleveland was an honest politician, but typical for his day, he wasn't a proactive one. Rather than implement his own programs, Cleveland saw the president's job as simply one that should stop bad things from happening. And he did this quite effectively by exercising his veto power.
Cleveland had the largest number of vetoes of any president until Franklin Roosevelt, and in his first term, something like 414 vetoes, about twice as many of all of his predecessors combined.
Cleveland truly didn't see the presidency as a platform for initiating positive change, a political philosophy that would be his downfall. He was the son of a Presbyterian minister, ingrained with a strong work ethic, firm sense of duty, and a streak of self-reliance.
He answered his own phone in the White House. He answered his own doorbell in the White House. He wrote all of his own speeches, sometimes for better, sometimes for worse, studied all of the measures and legislation himself until 2 in the morning, and then after 18 hours of work would sigh, lean back, and say to his secretary, "Well, let's knock off and call it half a day."
When he was elected, the 47-year-old Cleveland was a bachelor who appeared to have no romantic prospects in sight. In truth, he was secretly courting a 20-year-old college girl named Frances Folsom. As soon as Frances graduated from college, Cleveland proposed marriage, and on June 2nd, 1886, Grover Cleveland became the first and only president to get married in the White House. The wedding was celebrated across the nation, and overnight the American public fell in love with the beautiful new First Lady. While Frances monopolized the public's fascination, Cleveland returned to his role as the chief watchdog in government. vetoing bills that he saw as unwarranted drains on the American treasury.
Well, in one of his veto messages, he said, while the people should support the government should not support the people.
But his outlook was gradually growing out of favor. Many Americans were now looking to the government for assistance.
This was a period where it was becoming more and more clear that the federal government was not keeping up with changes in American society at large.
Particularly unpopular was Cleveland's objection to pensions for Civil War veterans.
One of the questions was, how can you tell that Grover Cleveland stays up past midnight vetoing pension bills? And the answer is because he's often so much in the dark about them.
It was a policy that would cost Cleveland the veterans' vote when he ran for re-election in 1888. And it didn't help that Cleveland himself had not served in the war. The Republican political machine, funded by big business, had found an attractive challenger in lawyer Benjamin Harrison. Harrison was a Civil War veteran, sympathetic not only to his fellow comrades, but to the special interests of those who ran his campaign. He quickly became the money candidate. And the big money issue that dominated the campaign was the Republican-backed protective tariff levied on foreign goods.
For most of the 19th century, for all of their existence as a political party, the Republicans had been the party of protectionism. This was conceived as necessary for the emergence of American industry in a time when the United States was industrially a laggard in world affairs.
The tariff was the hottest political issue in the 1888 campaign, and the country was clearly divided. In an election comparable to the 2000 race, Democrat Cleveland actually won the popular vote. But Republican Harrison became president because he won in the Electoral College. Upon her departure from the White House, First Lady Frances Cleveland told the staff to take good care of the place. They'd be back.